Welcome everybody to another episode of Top to Bottom. In today's review, we're going to be looking at the new Vitamin Boy and IshDARR album, Nausea. IshDARR, who is the MC of this collaborative album, is an artist that I stumbled upon because one of my viewers actually recommended an album of his to me. The album that I'm talking about is Slow Down Kid, which is an album that I actually loved. When the viewer suggested it to me, I figured I'd just give it a listen because they wanted me to review it, but the album is a little bit too old for me to review for Top to Bottom specifically. But I did give it a listen, ended up really loving it, and told that viewer that if IshDARR were to ever come out with a new project, I would absolutely review it because I want to hear more from this guy. So that brings us to this album, Nausea. I followed Ish on Spotify, however I didn't follow Vitamin Boy, so this album actually slid under my radar for a few weeks. I'm a little bit late to the party. This came out just towards the end of September. However, that same viewer brought this album to my attention and asked if I was going to review it, and even though I am a little bit late to the party, I don't think it's too late to give my thoughts on this project. So with that being said, let's hop into the review. There are 11 songs on this album, and at the 11th spot we have Terrible Towels, and this song is also terrible. I will get what I like about this track out of the way. I do think that the quiet keyboard sounds that are included in the beat sound pretty cool. The first verse is okay. I'm not a big fan of the first half in terms of the delivery, but the second half is a lot smoother and I like it a lot more. But the hook on this song is really where it goes from okay to awful. It is a rare moment on this album where the singing is really off. Seriously, it does not sound good at all. And on top of that, I can't exactly determine whether this is a positive or not considering how awful the vocals are, but they're also mixed way too quietly on the beat. There are moments where it's actually hard to hear what's being said, especially towards the start of the hook. In the number 10 spot, we have Anti. This track is extremely middle of the road. Both the flow and the beat sound pretty generic. The hook at first in the song sounded like it had potential, but that was quickly squandered. The mixing on IshDARR's vocals didn't sound quite right, and the ad-libs that he was doing were really off-putting. The most excruciating point in the song, though, is easily the beginning of the second verse, where Ish goes into some really weird vocal inflections, and it does not sound flattering at all. It sounds really forced, and on top of that, it comes off really cheesy. Once he stops doing that, his flow becomes a lot smoother and therefore enjoyable. The way he rides the beat at that point in the song is kind of how I wish he did so for the rest of the cut. The vocals on the bridge sound pretty interesting as well. It sounds like some really old singing that Joji would have released like way back when. Overall, there are more misses than hits on this one. Some interesting moments, but definitely one of the weakest tracks on the album, and it absolutely did not justify being the longest song on it as well. In the number 9 spot, we have Lotto. We get a sudden change of pace in the production here. The sound on this one is a lot moodier. I'm sensing a very strong Drake influence. While I do like the hook on this song, I don't really get much from the verse or the bridge that closes the track out. The drab delivery might fit the vibe of the track, but it comes off lazy and ultimately uninteresting. In the number 8 spot, we have Deck of Cards. I like the classy sounding beat with the lovely soulful sample. I don't like the dull performance Ish gives at the start of his verse, but thankfully, he comes alive a bit more shortly afterwards and as a result sounds a lot better. My biggest issue with the track is that it doesn't need to go on for as long as it does. It loses its flavor very quickly and just turns into background noise. The hook here is pretty decent. Ish's flow on his verse is also pretty great. I like the way he kicks things off by sitting in his upper register for just a few lines, then he transitions very smoothly into the rest of his part. The production is a bit darker in tone with its emotional pianos playing. It's definitely not a bad track and I do like it overall, but it is a little bit boring compared to other highlights on this album, and especially after Neck Braids, but it's still decent nonetheless and doesn't overstay its welcome too much. In the number 6 spot, we have the opening track, Toppy. We have some nice opening production on this one. I love the little ray gun sound effect right at the beginning. The beat is really steady and chilled out. IshDARR's opening lines are a bit of a turnoff with the whole rap getting messy, money sloppy toppy. However, he definitely kicks things up a notch afterwards. I really like his flow and some of his lyricism. The wordplay isn't half bad either. An example of that being, I never been one for showing of thoughts, ain't even come for the bull. Weakest moment here is definitely the pre-hook where Ish decides to go into a sleepy, mumbly delivery, which doesn't really land with me. I dig the hook itself though. I love the delivery for these last few lines. In the end, I think this is a solid tone setter for the album, high energy and exciting, even though it does have a few misses here or there. In the number 5 spot, we have Wine and Dine. Once again, I like the production from Vitamin Boy. The subtle, manipulated horns accompanied by the rapid snares is quite nice. Ish does pretty well here too. His whisper-like singing on the hook sounds good. The transition into his verse is executed quite well too, with a low-key delivery to start, then bumping the energy up slightly shortly afterwards. Lowest moment for me is the small amount of singing at the end of the verse, which in my opinion could have just done with some more rapping. The singing on the hook to close the track out would have been enough for me in my opinion. In the number 4 spot, we have Man Shutcho. A sweet send-off, the very light melody in the production makes for an emotional end. It's the shortest cut on the album and features some of my favorite singing from Ish on the whole thing. All I can really say is that it's an excellent closer and overall, I loved it. In the number 3 spot, we have Introductory. I'm loving the beat on this one. The sample snippet right at the beginning of the track is a nice detail in the production. The verse present on this song is one of the best on the album. Tight delivery and energy from Ish, especially towards the end of the verse where he hops on a few different flows and just makes it sound great. The hook isn't too bad either. It's a nice way to end the track off. I especially like the lines where Ish says, "I cannot see those hands of dudes who've been reaching since we started." Overall, a really great song. I loved it. Definitely a highlight. In the number 2 spot, we have Neck Braids. I love the eerie production with the high-pitched vocals placed over. The intro on this track is head-bobbing, and while the lyrics can be slightly hit or miss, that's my only gripe with the song, overall, the singing just fits perfectly. I think it's maybe the hookiest moment on the whole album. The slightly electronic beat here is one of my favorites on the whole thing. The verses are really great, but the second one is most certainly the best. I love the more intense and energetic flow from Ish. The bridge is solid too, with a few more renditions of that catchy hook. This makes for a cut on the album that I just love. And finally, at the number 1 spot, we have Goliath. Easily my favorite beat on the whole album. Those harsh notes over the chopped and screwed vocals come off really Kanye-like. For real, talk about a beat that goes fucking hard. Seriously, the production by Vitamin Boy here is fantastic. IshDARR's rapping is the best on the album and some of the best I've heard from him, period. His very in-your-face, urgent and aggressive flow is just awesome. I also love just how impressive his rhyme scheme is. He really packs a lot of rhymes into his lines. His verse is great throughout, but really picks up towards the end. The way the production and his rapping mesh together is just incredible. The hook keeps the energy high for the rest of the track and ends things really nicely. This song was just amazing. Absolutely mind-blowing contributions from both artists on this. IshDARR had amazing rapping, and the production is just awesome. I mean, seriously, a 10 out of 10 song. So yeah, those have been my thoughts on the new Vitamin Boy and IshDARR album, Nausea. As you could probably tell, there were definitely a good amount of highlights on this album, but I will say that there were a reasonably significant amount of misses here as well. There were some moments that I thought were just fantastic, but also some moments that gave me what the title of this album is. While I definitely think it's far from being a terrible project, I will say that when I listened to Slow Down Kid by IshDARR, I definitely enjoyed that a lot more. I think the batting average of that album was a lot stronger, while here there were definitely some moments that left me scratching my head thinking what the hell is going on. But there were also times on this album where I was like, God, if an entire album was like this shit would be amazing. IshDARR is a smaller artist, in my opinion, quite a bit underrated, and perhaps he's still finding exactly what sound he's trying to go for. Perhaps at some point he's going to stumble across an album that is just mind-blowing, and of course I'm going to review it. And while I didn't exactly love this album, IshDARR, if you're somehow watching this video, because I know you're a little bit more up and coming at this point, don't take this as me hating on you. I definitely enjoy a lot of your work, but this just didn't land with me as much as maybe I would want it to. I still think he has a lot of potential. I feel like this guy is really going to hit upon something really great at some point in the future. And I think this album is a good opportunity to look at some of the things that didn't really land with people, examine why, and take a look at the songs that people really did like and see what aspects of those songs you can continue to deliver in future projects, in future songs. Overall, I definitely enjoyed this, but as I said, I just didn't love it. So ultimately, when it comes down to scoring this album, what am I feeling on it? I'm feeling a 6.5. I didn't love the album. I didn't think it was just okay. I thought it was solid. Some people will will be a little bit disappointed with that score, and that's totally fine. But if you enjoyed it more than I did, I'm very, very happy for you. IshDARR's performance on average on this album was solid, and I could say the exact same thing for the production from Vitamin Boy. That's everything I had to say about this album. Nausea by Vitamin Boy and IshDARR, top to bottom, finished. I'm gonna wrap this video up here. So yeah guys, that's pretty much the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you smack the like button. If you want to stay up to date with my content, please be sure to subscribe. I'll have my last video in the corner. If you haven't checked that out already, definitely make sure to check it out. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.